Returning to Makkah in haste after a trading trip to Syria, Talha asked his family, "Did anything happen in Makkah since we left?" "Yes," they replied. Muhammad ibn Abdullah emerged alleging that he is a prophet and Abu Quafa, Abu Bakr, has followed him. "I used to know Abu Bakr," said Talha. "He is an easygoing, amiable, gentle man. He was an honest and upright trader. We were quite fond of him and loved sitting in his company because of his knowledge of Quraysh history and genealogy." Later, Talha went to Abu Bakr and asked, "Is it true what they say, that Muhammad ibn Abdullah has appeared as a prophet and that you follow him?" "Yes," replied Abu Bakr, and went on to tell Talha about Muhammad and what a good thing it would be if he too followed him. Talha in turn told Abu Bakr the story of his strange recent encounter with an ascetic in the marketplace of Basra in Syria. The ascetic is said to have told Talha that someone called Ahmad would appear in Makkah about that time and that he would be the last of the prophets. He also told Talha, so the story goes, that the prophet would leave the sacred precincts of Makkah and migrate to a land of black soil, water, and palm trees. Abu Bakr was astonished by the story and took Talha to Muhammad. The Prophet, peace be on him, explained Islam to Talha and recited some portions of the Quran to him. Talha was enthusiastic. He related to the Prophet in his conversation with the ascetic of Basra. There and then, Talha pronounced the Shahada, that there is no God but Allah and that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. He was the fourth person who had been introduced to Islam by Abu Bakr. The Quraysh were astounded by the young Talha's acceptance of Islam. The one who was most dismayed and unhappy was his mother. She had hoped that he would one day be a leader in his community because of his noble character and his outstanding virtues. Some of the Quraysh, anxious and worried, went to Talha as soon as they could to wean him away from his new religion, but found him firm and unshakable as a rock. When they despaired from using gentle persuasion to achieve their aim, they resorted to persecution and violence. The Quraysh did not stop there. Nawfal ibn Khuwaylid, nicknamed the Lion of the Quraysh, bound Talha with a rope, and with the same rope, he tied up Abu Bakr and then handed them over to the mindless and violent mob of Makkah to be beaten and tortured. The shared experience no doubt drew Talha and Abu Bakr closer together. Years passed and events of great significance took place. Talha grew in stature as he bore the pain and suffering of being tested in the path of God and his Prophet. He gained a unique reputation among Muslims as the living martyr. The Prophet, peace be on him, also called him Talha the Good and Talha the Generous. The name of the living martyr was earned during the Battle of Uhud. Talha had missed the Battle of Badr. He and Sa'd ibn Zayd had been sent outside Medina on a mission by the Prophet, and when they returned, the Prophet and his companions were already on the way back from Badr. They were both sad at having missed the opportunity of taking part in the first campaign with the Prophet, but were tremendously pleased when he told them they would get the same reward as those who actually fought. Talha is mostly known for being among the 10 to whom paradise was promised. The Prophet Muhammad said, "Abu Bakr is in paradise, Omar is in paradise, Uthman is in paradise, Ali is in paradise, Talha is in paradise, Al-Zubair is in paradise, Abdur Rahman ibn Auf is in paradise, Sa'ad is in paradise, Sa'd is in paradise, Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah is in paradise." At the Battle of Uhud, when the Muslims fell into disarray at the beginning of hostilities, the Prophet became dangerously exposed. There were about 11 men of the Ansar at his side and one Muhajir, Talha Ibn Ubayd-Allah. The Prophet clambered up the mountain hotly pursued by some Mushrikin. The Prophet, peace be on him, shouted, "The one who repulses these people from us will be my companion in paradise." "I, O Messenger of God," shouted Talha. "No, stick to your position," replied the Prophet. A man from the Ansar volunteered and the Prophet agreed. He fought until he was killed. The Prophet went further up the mountain with the Mushrikin still in close pursuit. "Isn't there someone to combat these?" Talha again volunteered, but the Prophet ordered him to maintain his position. Another person immediately came forward, fought and was killed. This happened until all who stood by the Prophet were martyred except Talha. "Now, yes," signaled the Prophet, and Talha went into battle. By this time, the Prophet's teeth had been broken, his forehead had been slashed, his lips had been wounded, and blood was streaming down his face. He was drained of energy. Talha plunged into the enemy and pushed them away from the Prophet. He turned back to the Prophet and helped him a little further up the mountain and put him to lie on the ground. He then renewed his attack and successfully repulsed the enemy. About this occasion Abu Bakr said, "At that moment, Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah and I were far from the Prophet. When we came close to him to render assistance to him, the Prophet said, "Leave me and go to your companion," meaning Talha. There was Talha, bleeding profusely. He had numerous wounds, from swords, spears, and arrows. His foot had been cut and he had fallen into a hollow where he lay unconscious. Thereafter, the Prophet, peace be on him, said, "Whoever is pleased to see a man still walking on earth who had completed his span of life, let him look at Talha ibn Ubayd-Allah." And, whenever Uhud was recalled, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, may God be pleased with him, would say, "That day, that entire day, belonged to Talha." That was the story of how Talha became to be called the living martyr. There were innumerable incidents that led to him being called Talha the Good and Talha the Generous. Talha was an astute and successful merchant who traveled widely to the north and south of the Arabian Peninsula. It is said that after one of his trips to Hadramaut, he had profits amounting to some 700,000 dirhams. His nights would be anxious and worried on account of this vast wealth. On one such night, his wife, Kulthum the daughter of Abu Bakr, said to him, "What's wrong with you, O father of Muhammad? Perhaps I have done something to hurt you." "No," replied Talha. "You are a wonderful wife for a Muslim man. But I have been thinking since last night, how can a man think of his Lord and Sustainer when he goes to sleep with this wealth in his house? Why should it bother you so much?" remarked Kulthum. "What about all the needy ones in your community and all your friends? When you get up in the morning, share it out among them. God bless you. You are really marvelous, the daughter of a marvelous man," said Talha to his wife. In the morning, Talha gathered up the money in bags and distributed it among the poor Muhajirin and Ansar. It is related that a man came up to Talha requesting help and also mentioned some common family connections between them. "This family connection someone has mentioned to me before," said Talha, who was known for his generosity to all members of his clan. Talha told the man that he had just sold a piece of land to Uthman ibn Affan for several thousand dirhams. The man could have the money or the land, which could be repurchased from Uthman. The man opted for the money and Talha gave it all to him. The name Talha is also connected with the first fitna or civil war among Muslims after the death of the Prophet, peace be on him. The seeds of trouble were sown during the caliphate of Uthman ibn Affan. There were many complaints and accusations against him. Some mischief makers were not taxed with accusations only but were determined to finish him off. One day, a group of insurgents stormed Uthman's house and murdered him while he was reading the Quran. It was one of the most shocking events in the early history of Islam. Ali was persuaded to accept the responsibility of the caliphate and all Muslims swore allegiance to him, including Talha and Zubair ibn al-Awwam. Talha and Zubair were deeply shocked by the murder of Uthman. They were horrified and felt strongly that the murderers should be punished and that justice should be done. But the punishment of the murderers was not an easy task, as much as the crime was not just the work of a few individuals but involved a large number of persons. Talha and Zubair sought Ali's permission to go to Makkah to perform Umrah. They met Aisha, the wife of the Prophet. She was greatly shocked when she heard of the assassination of Uthman. From Makkah, Talha, Zubair, and Aisha set off for Basra, where large numbers were gathering to seek revenge for the death of Uthman. The forces gathered at Basra seemed to present an open challenge to Ali. As the caliph of the Muslims and the head of the entire Muslim state, he could not tolerate any insurrection or armed revolt against the state. But what a difficult and awesome task he faced. To deal with the revolt, he had to confront his brothers, his companions, and his friends, followers of the Prophet and his religion, those who often fought side by side with him against the forces of shirk, those whom he respected and loved. The forces clamoring for vengeance for Uthman and those supporting Ali met at a place called Qurayba, near Basra. Ali desired to avoid war and settle matters by peaceful means. He used every means at his disposal to achieve peace. He clung to every hope of avoiding confrontation. But the dark forces at work against Islam, and how numerous were, they were determined that matters should come to a terrible and bloody end. Ali wept. He wept bitterly when he saw Aisha, the mother of the believers, in her hautage or palanquin astride a camel at the head of the army which now emerged to fight him. And when he saw Talha and Zubair, two close companions of the Prophet, in the midst of the army, he shouted to them to come out to him. They did, and Ali said to Talha, "O Talha, have you come with the wife of the Messenger of Allah to fight with her?" And to Zubair he said, "O Zubair, I implore you, by God, do you remember the day when the Prophet, peace be on him, passed by you and we were in such and such a place, and he asked you, 'Do you love Ali?' And you said, 'Why shouldn't I love my cousin and one who follows my religion?' Ali continued talking to them, reminding them of the bonds of brotherhood and faith. In the end, both Talha and Zubair withdrew from participation in this civil war. They withdrew immediately when they saw the situation in a different light. But they paid for that withdrawal with their lives. As they withdrew, a man named Amr ibn Jarmus followed Zubair and cowardly murdered him while he performed salat. Talha was killed by an arrow allegedly shot by Marwan, a cousin of Uthman, who was too blinded by rage and the desire to seek revenge for his kinsman to respond to the possibility of avoiding war and bloodshed among Muslims. The murder of Uthman had become Talha's tryst with destiny. He did not participate in the fighting and killing that followed, that came to be known in history as the Battle of the Camel. Indeed, if he had known that the fitna would have degenerated into such insane hatred and bitterness and resulted in such a bloody outcome, he would have resisted it. He was not keen to fight Ali. He was simply appalled by the murder of Uthman and wanted to see justice done. Before the beginning of the battle, he had said in a voice choked with emotion, "O Lord, for the sake of Uthman, take from me this day until you are pleased." Then when Ali faced him and Zubair, they saw the correctness of his position and withdrew from the field of battle. Yet, in these difficult circumstances, martyrdom was reserved for them. The Battle of Camel came to an end. Aisha, the mother of the believers, left Basra for the sacred mosque and then to Medina, distancing herself from the conflict. Ali provided well for her journey, giving her all the comfort and honor due to her. When the numerous dead from the battle were brought together, Ali led the funeral prayer for them all, those who were with him and those who were against him. And when he had finished burying Talha and Zubair, he bade farewell to them with a heavy heart, a heart filled with tenderness and love. "I really hope," he said in simple and sublime words, "that Talha, Zubair, Uthman, and I will be among those of whom God has said,
وَنَزَعْنَا مَا فِي صُدُورِهِم مِّنْ غِلٍّ إِخْوَانًا عَلَى سُرُرٍ مُتَقَابِلِينَ."
Then he looked tenderly and sorrowfully on the graves of his brothers in faith and said, "I have heard with these 2 ears of mine the Messenger of Allah, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, saying, Talha and Zubair are my companions in paradise." What was the name which Talha Ibn Ubayd-Allah was known by after the Battle of Uhud? Ready to showcase your knowledge? Then prove it by answering the question in the comments below. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button to show your support for our Sahaba channel so you won't miss our future Islamic biographies and stories.